Okay, it is 7 o'clock. Call the City of Blakesburg budget work session to order. Roll call. Chisholm.
Present.
McSparron. Benj.
Present.
Smith.
Present.
Vandal.
Present.
Okay. All right, guys.
Sheets that I gave you were basically what we had the last time, only I carried it on out into the categories instead of just.
Okay.
And then this one is what it is.
Okay. So what you guys are looking at on the stapled page there would be somewhat similar to what we looked at the last time. Only everything is divvied out now instead of just coming out of the one line into the proper lines that they're supposed to come out of, like Gary's salary with the estimate coming out of this one here. But yeah, coming out of parks, coming out of road use, water and sewer, and then his employee benefit coming out there as well. And then we have, just going on down, you have Ina's salary coming out of water and the general fund, and then her benefits, and then the mayor's salary with the benefit, and the council, city council, and their benefit. Gary's phone allowance included in there under the parks, road use, sewer, and water. And then the unemployment insurance also in the employee benefits, and the workman's comp as well. And then we go back to our general fund list there, the Koch brothers and the copies. 755 and 100. Paper for copies, which I think that's the same as we had the last time, correct? Yeah. None of the values have been changed, so everything that we're looking at is basically the same as it was the last time. The rest of that sheet. And the public safety and the fire department includes the 2,700 from the 2080 agreement and what we have remaining on the other agreement. I do believe there has been some, I don't know if discrepancy in what we owe the fire department. Is that the right terminology? That number may change. We need to, I'll be trying to get in touch or looking into it and getting with the fire department here in the next couple of days to find out what the exact amount of that is. Because yeah, that could change kind of dramatically, actually. So actually, I would assume that we wouldn't have anything going on the fiscal year 19 budget if that comes through, because you take the 2,700 that we're obligated for off that. So that's something that we have to do a little more research on. Leffler Dirt Works, that'll be from July 1st to January, a $1,900 payment monthly with a final payment of $1,608, excuse me. And that'll get them paid off for the work that they did there in June of 16, I believe, 15 or 16. You see the 27,000 sewer fee, which is the principal on the payment, and also the interest payment of $48.65. And that payment on the principal, that's 27, or is that 30?
I'm pretty sure it's 27,000 on next year's.
Okay, on next year's.
One for 17 and one for 10.
Okay. All right. So again, that accounts for the payment, the big payment we have coming up. I guess that'd be 18. Never mind. Yeah, this will be for next year. Phone and internet at City Hall. Alliant Energy and the streetlights, again, these numbers are pretty much the same as what we're looking at the last time. Heating and cooling, of course, gonna vary with how much heat and air we use. The ball parents that will be paying, that passed at our meeting the other night, that you see that number is no longer in there because they're gonna be paying that. Their electricity, at the meeting the other night, they agreed to pay for their electric bill. So that helping the city out a little bit. You see, the next time we put the firm, and everybody, knock on wood, that hopefully only 3 mains or something like that is what we need.
I just put that in there, so if you guys want a different number, let me know. I guessed 3.
Are you guys okay with 6,000 put there, or are we worried, Bob? I saw that look, I got that look from Bob, that that's,
I'm looking for my sheet where I estimated what we've done so far, excluding the fire hydrant.
I think that 3's low.
3's too low, I would say so, too.
I guess the worst case, we could go with that, and, I mean, we might not have any repairs.
Right.
So it's,
I'm afraid that that's.
depends on the weather and a lot of other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, a lot of factors.
Well, they're kind of acting like, which made me feel good. They kind of act like we're better than average on a lot of things they saw, so I don't know.
Well, I think this last episode we went through was dry ground, then it froze deep, and both of them were near where there's vibration in the road. That's not just a guess, I'm not an expert.
Right.
We can always amend that if we have to, so.
Yeah, just leave it.
Look, leave it at 6, 3 or 6,000,
Yeah.
and we can amend it.
If we have 2, and then we'll have to go back and amend it afterwards, if we have 2 out of 3.
Let's stick with that. Rathman, or Waste Management, excuse me, is the next one there. That's 19,692. Again, we discussed last time having to raise probably the garbage rates a couple bucks to keep up with that. Billing forms for water, 475. Rathman Rural Water Association, 24,000.
Is that with the new increase, or is that?
That was in July, so we're a good 6 months, well, 7, 8 months into it.
Right. So that's, our snapshot's coming from that, so that's our estimate is 24,000 with the increase from Rathman. Again, once we get our stuff turned into the Rural Water Association and get a rate study done, we should know a little more where we need to be. Sales tax on water, 1,970. Is that?
It's just gonna be your 6% on the water,
Okay.
or 7% of it.
Okay.
It'll vary, kind of depending on how much water we actually.
How much we use, yep. Okay, the water billing software, $1,219 for the year, split up in between water and sewer utility. You see below what we contracted to Joe Crookham. For water testing, that comes out of the water and sewer. It's 2,000, about $6,700 there. That's a contracted number, so that's something that we, not real flexible. Tunnel pollution control, $360. And then we have the Keystone Water every July, a test, $110. And then lead testing,
I couldn't find the amount, so Joe and I talked, and he thought it might be in the neighborhood of 300.
and his educated guess would be far better than any educated guess I could ever come up with.
And he wasn't sure we would have it this year, because it's not every year, but he thought we probably would.
Better to plan for it and be prepared than not be prepared for it. Fuel for the city vehicle and mower. We spent $257 through January of this year, which is basically a 6-month time frame, so 500 is pretty reasonable guess on that. City cleanup day, and an estimate of 2,000. In the past, I think it's been at least 1,500 to bring the dumpsters in, correct?
I don't know, like I say, last year, I don't think the year before we did it.
So it's been a couple of
At
years.
least
that I've been done.
I know we didn't last year because we didn't know where we were.
Right,
We were spending money that we might not have.
right on. So I think that's a relatively feasible estimate as well. And again, like you said, we can always go back. If it's cheaper, we can amend that one way or another. But I definitely think cleanup day is something we need to bring back. We discussed that at the last hearing, last budget meeting. Truck mower service maintenance. I think that's something that's lacked in the past, so it's good to be planning ahead for that and staying up on the, making sure everything's running, getting some things fixed. We discussed that at the meeting.
And that was total guess on my part, so if you guys have a better guess.
What did it cost for this last,
300 and something that last time we had the truck service.
what was
but
maintenance, and they looked at the
a
snow,
small repair on
and
it.
lights or something? We know, and it amended, or we got $800 there, so,
Pretty comfortable with that.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd say we just amend it if we have to.
All right, and that's an estimate of mowing the cemetery 10 times, and then other cemetery, I think 10 times is a low guess, but that, the other cemetery, I think, includes that, but that gets us up to the 6,000 that we kind of had kicked around and proposed possibly the last time, with the caveat that they're gonna have to maybe start having some dinners and doing some kind of fundraising. But 375 a time, got 220, the other 2250 would account for another 6 times of mowing. That gets us up to 16 times before they do any fundraising or anything. So 16 times, and you figure we'll be figuring between April and September, basically mowing a couple times a month. April, May, June, July, August, September, 6 months. That's,
That might have to go to October, just depends on what.
depends on the weather, and it depends on the rain during the summer. But that gives us, where we'd be planning on 12 times at 375, and then we'd still have a little wiggle room for a couple other times in there if we go ahead and stick with the 6,000.
And this won't start till 1st of July of this year anyway.
Yes, correct.
And there again, if we have to.
And they did have, I believe that little sheet in there. Where we were at, the sheet we got off at the council meeting on Monday, with where they stood this year, they were way under.
I'm thinking it might have been 8,000 was budgeted.
They were budgeted 8,000, but through the first 2 quarters, they'd only spent 3,200. So, I mean, if they start mowing in April, May, June, I mean, they're probably not going to be very close to it.
Hey, their budget used to be 7,000, and it was raised like 5 or 6 years ago, just to 8,000 to help them get out of debt. I don't think it'd be a big issue to drop that back down to 7 or maybe even more.
Right.
I found it.
That's what the proposal, I think the proposal right now is at 6,000. So, like I said, if they can help out and do some fundraising on their own, and we can help them with that. I would be willing to help with any dinner, anything they need help with.
That was
We'll need some of that.
cemetery mowing you was talking about.
Cemetery budget period.
Okay.
That's what the whole budget is.
Okay, and there were, yes, Ina left here, rock and sand. We hadn't factored that in when we met the last time, so she's got nothing listed in there. That would come out of road use, correct?
Right.
We've got a lot of sand out at the fire station,
Okay.
depending on what we're gonna use it for, of course.
Right.
And I'd say rock does not work to fill potholes, but I realize we got streets we have to have rock on. So I haven't bought any rock for a long time. You get a tandem B, $500.
At least,
Yeah.
at least.
If we had a place to stockpile where we didn't lose it, I think it's probably most efficient to bring it. Or maybe somebody that hauls 7 tons or something, if you can find sand axle.
Oh, I can't remember who used to haul it for us, before D&D. But you could call them, they'd be here the next day, or that day. If they bought 3 loads, and usually throw 1 load in free. But I can't remember who it was.
You used Dallas when Mike was in later, Dallas hauling down.
But they, he's from a tunnel, I think. It seemed like he was always right here when they called Dave Hall, and they'd be there that day. We didn't need it till the next day, but it was here that day. And seems like they always got an extra load somehow.
That Lathrop has, he has dump trucks in doing, I think.
Yeah, but I think we got an account with Dallas now, or did have. Yeah, when Mike come in that first time, he asked if we had an account with Dallas, so that first one over there, Dallas, I assume they did all the gravel and the sand then, so.
Okay, they just had somebody on.
Yeah, I think.
Do you have any idea how much of each material they might use? 5 ton, 4 ton, or?
I don't remember the tons. I know it was 250 for the Rocky Rock that day.
That was just backfill down there on the corner, right?
Right.
Yeah, I don't think there was much rock left. There was some sand, I know that, but.
No, 250 wasn't including the sand, because they were 100.
Well, 600 would get us a load. I can't see us, with the exception of the cemetery down there, actually needing a load. I mean,
Yeah, I think the cemetery's kind of requested, or when we might think about some gravel down there on some of it.
We're gonna have them come out of the cemetery's fund as well, so that's something that,
It was just,
Hey Jason, out at the fire department, like Bob said, that sand, there's a pile of like pea gravel in there somewhere, and all that foliage, that's also the city's.
oh,
The only thing that the fire department owns as far as rock is that one pile on the very south side of that drive. Otherwise, whatever piles of crap is in there is all the city's.
but they, when they did the streets, they had some extras, and they just dumped it out there, that pea gravel when they.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the pea gravel's the city's.
Right.
so if we needed it, we could use it for.
Yeah, I mean, it's full of foliage, but
I'd hate to see us put that down in the cemetery because of the wash factor.
Right.
I think it just end up off the grass and
You had to put cement in it, make it stay.
So you think
actually, that
a-
probably wouldn't be something bad,
I
but
think,
if you put cold patch
with the
in,
exception of the
throw some
cemetery,
of that
I
on
don't,
it.
we haven't gone through a load of rock here. I mean, the patch is what we need more of.
Yeah.
right
So would you
now.
be comfortable with $600 for
Yeah,
the?
I think that's plenty.
That's good.
Yeah, and something to think about is getting some of that agrifab, if we have to dump something on that lot so it doesn't sink down in the dirt.
In the lot, no, we're talking about fencing in over here.
The one, yeah, down by the parsonage.
So, any estimate, any guess on how much we go to that?
Well, agrifab is a material.
It's just something to lay on top.
Oh, okay.
It
Lay
is,
on top of it.
I don't know what the proper name is, that may not be the proper name, but Water will go through it, but like I say, keep the rock from migrating down in the dirt and losing a lot of it. It's not terribly expensive.
So just something. Trying to figure out where we could put that in here.
Say $100 of cleaning supplies would be a plenty, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You're talking for City Hall here.
Yeah.
Well, I think, or maybe less even, I don't know.
That would be the general fund expense, correct?
I call it cleaning supplies, but there might be other things like the ice melt and all those little odds and ends of things that kind of trickle in. So how much did you decide on rock and sand?
600 on rock and sand. And we're gonna, you said $100, you think would be more than enough for cleaning?
Well, cleaning, if you're throwing ice melt in it, maybe that throws a, if they're, considered in the same category. I have no idea what ice melt is, but we gotta have it.
Yeah.
I think we need to up the rock. 'Cause I think we need a pile of it around, because there's a lot of holes that never been filled over the years that need to be filled.
It won't stay, it just pounds out.
I'm talking in alleys and these big holes that's all over. It's gotta be, you can't, there's rock areas that need holes filled.
I'm thinking double that.
I would say between the rock and the mat, probably just put $1,000 and we'll try to, because that mat's, that's probably might allow a whole lot more for the rock, but if we can get some of that mat for sure.
Okay.
But there's only 2 alleys that we maintain, 3 alleys we maintain.
I would say the one, down by the community building, I don't think we maintain that.
No.
Because when they have water, selling water, I run into that. They said, you want some rock, you get it.
We maintain the one that's by the park.
Right out here.
That one down by Railroad Street's what I'm thinking, because it's got holes at both ends of it. That's kind of by the street, but
It's rocked and not seal coated or anything.
yeah, yeah.
Over elevator.
Yeah. Well, the little back on Railroad Street would be, comes up to Hickory.
Yeah.
Dave,
Because that one,
comes up to Hickory.
that one never ever got done. That
There's
was,
a great big hole there that, shoot, when the ball turns, or if you meet 2 cars there, you can, somebody's going in a 1.5 foot hole there.
yeah.
There's always water sitting there, is that, we got a problem there?
I think it's just a big hole, it's never been filled,
Mhm.
yeah. That's the type of stuff I wanna make sure and take care of, but yeah, I think we ought to have some rock and, between the mat, like he was talking, to put under the rock and in some of them holes. I mean, if you can put that mat in a hole even and put 3/4 roadstone in there and it's gonna pack, as long as you got fines in it, that's what can be used. It'll pack in there and stay in there. I mean, it's not, we're still gonna need that asphalt stuff, some of that, but
So we're counting for 1,000, I think that would be,
yeah.
so instead of 600, go to 1,000. Okay. Okay, so cemetery is taken care of, so on the next page we go to estimate on library salary, wages, and benefits. It's $10 per week at the rate, for Cheryl, be $5,070, for Chris, $4,810.
Oh, and then just do your hours there. I was just guessing.
And Carrie Gloucester, 962, and then their benefits as well, 866, 822, 164. And then IPERS and Social Security for the library, 1,696. And Medicare, 157.21. And then, of course, other library expense, have 2,000.
I just put what was left from the amount that we had
The
down.
amount that we had.
Other.
Kind of figured.
One thing I found out, Cheryl, today as I was kind of looking through things, we had not been putting the employee benefit expense in your, charging it to you. So actually, we would have been over budget the last 2 or 3 years by the time we put the benefits in.
Okay.
We were just putting salary down, so we have IPERS and Social Security and workman's comp and.
But, okay, so, and we didn't take that out. When we put in salary, we just put, this is so much of salary, but we
Right.
don't get that because the taxes and stuff are taken out of that.
I kind of calculated today on, let's see,
This one here.
oh, it's this one. The amount that came in for employment revenue was 1,886. In addition to that, we actually spent more than that. So the total for the library from fiscal year 17 was 3,154 on employee benefits.
And that included that penalty,
There may have been penalties in that.
because you said that there was, because stuff wasn't paid, there was penalties, and you put that across every budget?
That goes on everybody's budget.
Okay, so
That was just percentage-wise, split out based on the percentage of salaries.
Okay, but we, the library board, approved a budget proposal for fiscal year 19. At its November, December meeting, we forwarded that to you. The city allocation the past few years is all we've ever asked for was $4,500. We did go over 1 year because we didn't do enough fundraising, but since I've been here. But the bulk of our money comes from the county, and then the fundraising that we do is far more than what our city allocation is. I understand you're just trying to come up with numbers of what salary is and saying, okay, that's what we're putting into that line item. Your total line item on the budget year, that last year's fiscal 18 said 14,000.
That was for everything, I think, it wasn't just salary.
Yeah, well, that might have been for everything, but that's not the city's paying that 14,000.
We understand that.
That's, and so the only thing I worry about with this budget process is our city allocation going to be the same next year? Are we still going to get 4,500 from the city? And the reason I'm asking that is our county funding is based on our city funding and our total budget. The document I gave you, if I can just talk real quickly, I will go through it very fast. The first little chart there is what each one of the 5 cities in Wapello County is getting for fiscal year 18. And I know it says 17 there. When I looked at the chart, it was because that first check was written in June of 17 for fiscal year 18. So we got our first half funding. And then, so we will get for fiscal year 18, $6,259.90, or $6,260 basically from the county, which is 9.6% of the total county allocation for all libraries in Wapello County. I have heard the number was thrown out that you were going to cut our allocation by $2,000. If you did that, that is a 44% cut from the funding that we would get from our city. And if you do that, you can see that the county is going to, instead of giving us the portion of their formula that gives us right now $2,400, that would cut it down to $1,300, which is an $1,100 cut. So we're talking $3,100 cut. If the city would cut $2,000, and we would lose $1,100 from the county. So that overall is an 18% cut to our total budget. If the county or the city says, okay, we're just gonna reduce the library by 25% of our fund allocation, that would still be $1,125. So that takes that city or county portion down to $1,874, which is a $432 cut that we would see from the county. So again, it's a big cut. And the formula at the bottom, the county gets so much money to divide between all 5 county libraries. 1/4 of it is equally divided. 1/4 of it is based on our city's tax levy and what we get from the city for our library. 1/4 of it is based on our population in each of the 5 cities. And then 1/4 of it is based on our budget, our total budget numbers compared to the total for all 5 libraries. So the second page here, I just did a very simple, using that formula so you could see what it would be. If the county had $60,000, Part A, they take and divide it evenly between, 1/4 of it evenly between the 5 cities. So each city starts with $3,000. Then the next part is based on our city tax levy, and I went to the state data center and found, and just looked at the budget where it said our total tax levy was 11.77 cents per thousand, and looked at all the other cities and what theirs was, and the total was $76.24, or 76.24, whatever it is. But we only get 16% of that, and that's where that $2,400, where you see 2406 on the first page, that's where that comes in. And then the population, I mean, we're 296. Ottumwa was 25,000. Total population for Wapello County for FY18, 27,908. We only get $150 based on the population. And then when you look at our total budget, what we had submitted to the county, and I think is what they based it off of, was 17,000, because that's what we've been submitting every year, is what our budget proposal is. And I know maybe you're coming up with your numbers because of what our city allocation, our county allocation, our state allocation has been. Like this next year, it equals about $12,000. Grants, fundraising, donations, all of that could vary from year to year, so you can't necessarily count on that. But that's what we use to figure our total budget. But if we lower our total budget number and we lower the amount the city gets, then we get a much smaller portion of that pie. Right now, we're only getting 2% of that Part D money, which is $300. But if we go down to 12,000, then we're gonna be down there even less than agency with maybe $100 in that section. So everything that we do impacts how we're gonna get our money from the city. And then using this example at the bottom, I just showed how much each city got from Part A, Part B, Part C, and Part D in their total allocation out of that 60,000 and what percentage of that was. And if you go back and look at the chart for this year, in my example, it's pretty close to the same percentages as what they were working on. But if we end up cutting our budget, that's a smaller piece of the pie we're getting, and we're basically saying, hey, Agency, Eldon, and Eddyville, and Ottumwa, you take our library share of this money, we don't want it. So I realize the city's in trouble, it has to cut money, but when I looked at the library's allocation, $4,500 out of the total amount in the general fund expenditures last year, or for fiscal year 18, was $94,500, or $95,800. We were at 4% of that total. And if you look at the library's expenditures out of the entire budget, $246,600, we were at less than, we were at 0.018%. So less than 1% of the total budget. So I know you need to cut somewhere, you need to save money, but cutting from that little bit isn't where you're gonna make a whole lot of savings, but it's definitely gonna impact us and how we get money from our county. And then the last couple of pages, I'll just go through really fast. I went through and looked at the library revenue, and this is what was turned into the state library in its annual reports from fiscal year 01 to fiscal year 17, and the total and then the average of what was taken in. And the next page is the expenditures, again, taken from the state library reports. And when you add all those up, and then you look at the total revenue minus the total expenditures, that the library has actually brought in $14,724 more than it spent. There was one year that I think somebody screwed up when they submitted this report, because if you look on the revenue for 2012, all the years prior to that, we'd only been getting like 3,600, the year after that it was 3,500, and somehow they put down 12,000. That was probably that line from this budget that's the full amount that the city was saying they were paying, which included all of the funding streams, not just the cities. But even if you took that out and made it 3,600, so it'd be more in line with the other ones, over that whole period, the library still has brought in 6,324 more over what it spent. So, you know, and again, this is just the statistics that they were put in the annual report every year. And then the last page is what we had proposed in the library board approved for me to use as a working budget for fiscal year 19. And this is basically the same figures as far as the total revenue and expenditures that we did the last 2 years. And there are just certain things. I know the city has to have certain things, so do we. We have to pay for the phone, we have to pay for the internet, we have to pay for wages, and we have to allow for staff development, and we have to have a certain percentage for our collection, and there's postage and office supplies and things that we just have to have. I don't know where we're going to be able to cut a whole lot if we have to cut. And so I understand where you are and I understand where you're coming from. I just want you to know that if you cut us a significant amount of money, that's also going to cut our county funding. So we'll certainly work with you and figure out how we can crunch the numbers and make sure that, you know, and like I said, that total number that we put down as budget doesn't take out the taxes and stuff, but I know that at least the state and federal and Social Security is taken out of that amount. When we submit our hours, and the total hours for that pay period, the taxes and stuff are taken out of that when we get our check.
That's not our share though, above what's taken out of your check, we have to pay our share.
Your share.
That's the part.
But we're paying our share.
You're paying your share,
Right.
right, that's included, but you haven't had the share that the city has to pay.
Okay. So, but I just wanted to try to make you aware, and you know, I mean, we will do what we have to do, but when we're such a minuscule part of the entire city's budget to begin with, if we really need savings, I don't think cutting someplace that has such a tiny amount is really gonna make a significant change in your revenue and expenditures.
I don't think anybody would question what you guys have done down there is great. The library that we have right now currently is awesome. I'm just afraid that it's been built into something that we honestly can't completely afford. I don't, you know what I'm saying?
$4,500 is too much to spend on a library.
Well, no, that's not exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the spending has been out of control, citywide.
Citywide.
Right.
But our board has been making up the difference for what we need to spend.
Every year we've done $3,500
Or more in
or
fundraising.
more for every year.
And we raised
And we fundraise all the time.
No, you do.
What portion are you talking about that the city pays for?
On Social Security, it's even, whatever you have.
They
to
match
have,
whatever
pay.
we
gotta match what-
On IFRS, it's
IFRS, they have to match what we pay.
And then Medicare.
And you said that's $1,600 a year?
Total
or just-
3,400 this last year total.
Total, so we pay half of it, you pay half of it.
Oh, 3154 was what it came to for FY17. And that included workman's comp, your share of the 25% based on the overall salaries and unemployment.
But that 3154 is the total that we split, or that's just the city's portion?
That's just the city's portion. Yours is just included in the gross salary amount.
So basically
That don't make sense because in the past, it's all the budget, everything, all the pay, the extra taxes of Social Security that was matched came out of their budget. The city didn't pay for that extra because that was part of the $4,500 that the city paid to the library.
But it's a part of the overall budget.
Budget.
So when you look at her budget, what she has for wages, and then this is part of our wage expense, I don't know if I'm explaining that right.
Yes.
No.
That would
I
have
don't
to
understand
So
come
it
what
needs
you're
to
saying.
go into our budget.
So we need to put a line
So it
item
needs
in
to go
there
in our
Yeah,
budget.
it would have a
for
line
wage
item.
benefits. So we need to know what that amount is to put in our
Yeah.
budget, our share.
In FY '17, it's 3154, but I can give you the percentages, and then it would be a percentage also.
Okay, so we could take a percentage of what we have for wages and put that in there. And I just, when it comes to library services, I don't, the people in this town deserve a decent library. We provide good programming, we provide educational opportunities, we provide things for kids to do. And I think the people in this town need and deserve the same services that they could get were if they were in another town.
The
I don't,
fact is, if we don't pay it to this library,
you're gonna be paying it to other,
we're gonna be paying it to the other library.
they're gonna get our share of the money.
Meaning if this library closes because we can't pay for it, then the money that we were paying them has to go to either Alvia or Atoma.
That's
But-
somewhere ready
but
to go.
what- The percentage that has to come from the city is 6 cents per $1,000 of
Right.
taxable evaluation, which would be about $300.
$300, I know, and nobody could operate that, and they know that, and most cities fund far above that.
Mhm.
And, I mean, I've come here before and I've shown you how compared to the other 12 towns, exactly our size with our population, we are way underfunded what they are doing. And like you said, we are doing so much with so little, that if we have to try to do even less, or even more with less money, it's just gonna be, I don't know how we're gonna do it.
Well, by the time it got done, it'd be a year down the road, I'm gonna bring it up. Get it on the ballot, that local excise tax, 27 cents for you. And it'd probably be November before it ever get a shot at getting through, but I'd push to have people vote on that.
I understand where you're coming from, but I just think if people are already knowing their water rates are gonna increase and their sewer and their garbage is gonna increase, they're not gonna vote a tax increase additional. Even though on a $30,000 house in Blakesburg, that would only increase their taxes $83 a year, I don't think they're gonna say, I'm gonna charge myself another tax for the library, because the city is not gonna fund it. And if that did pass, is that going to be on top of what, or are you going to cut it, our funding by that much to make up the difference?
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
So what Ina was talking about, the over $3,000 that needs to be assessed back to the library again and put into their
That's just
budget.
what it would have been off.
Yeah, and I'm just talking rough numbers here, Ina, because I know when we were going through that, it took me a while to get that through my head, how that all worked, but so they have to, as of this fiscal year, this next fiscal year, start picking that up, and you're gonna cut money from their budget, so now, I mean, you're looking at, you want them to pay more, and yet you're gonna give them actually less to work
Technically,
with?
they would have had it last year, it just wasn't.
No, I understand perfectly, I know exactly what you're saying, but you
Well, that
know,
was
the
a
fact,
clerk's mistake there.
the fact of the matter is that they're gonna have to absorb that going forward,
Right.
right?
Bob, what are your thoughts?
You were here last year, what were your
Yep.
thoughts? How was things paid last year?
Last year, before Ina came on the scene, we were in a pretty dark place. We really didn't have a good idea where things were. I guess my thought is, since we're gonna actually lose money on this deal, how bad, if we don't cut them, how bad is it gonna hurt us to get where we wanna get? I mean, is it gonna train wreck us, or can we,
I don't know where else we're gonna cut.
what's that?
I don't know where else we're gonna cut.
Well, we cut the cemetery.
That's part of my problem, I don't cut the cemetery,
How can we go to the cemetery board
How
and
can we
say,
go to
we
them
cut you
and say-
25%?
yeah.
Okay, but does the cemetery board have to raise 30% of their operating expenses?
That's what we were
Already.
just discussing.
Already? Because we do.
We already do. We will be raising about 50% or more of our,
You have all the time.
They
Yeah.
no, we raise, at this point, we raise 21%. If you cut us $2,000, that will be about 50% of our budget that we have to raise.
But am I saying 2,000's off? the
2,000's
table?
off.
2,000's off the table.
So what are we looking at?
25% was what
25% is what
we
we've
kicked
been
around.
talking about.
That's 1,125, but then you're saying we have to come up with 3,100, So it's still a $2,000 cut,
Plus the loss of the county money.
plus plus the loss of the county money of another $532 or more.
We're, I guess, it sounds like maybe we're gonna cut back a little bit on Gary, a little bit on hours, right?
We had discussed that with him not working as much during the
Winter
winter time,
We were just basing.
on what he's averaged right now.
And our
But
hours,
Gary's money comes out of
Road, sewer.
4 different places, and none of which are the general fund, which the general fund deficit is what is the issue. We have a $59,000 general fund deficit.
Yeah, that's always in the red.
but, and on our salary, our wages that we put in there, that's based on 52 weeks a year, and we know we're not there 52 weeks a year. That's 22 hours a week at 52 weeks. Usually we have to shut down for 2 weeks in the summer for the school to get the cleaning done, and then there's holidays or there's weather things. So we have never actually spent that full amount that we budgeted on wages. So that does give us a little cushion, but, you know, it's just,
The other thing too, Jason and I know you know about this, we were talking about it in the office before the meeting, is I don't have the numbers in front of me, but just not paying all of the late fees and the late charges. I mean, there is a significant amount of money that got paid out in penalties and late fees and charges. You know, last year that the city's not, because I'm so darn good, the city's not going to have to deal with that this year. You know, so,
And we're still doing that for 2018. There's been tons of that
Yeah.
are still getting paid
Yep.
last year.
it's, the city's not gonna dig out in 1 or 2
Oh, no,
years.
it's a process. I mean, it's
Yeah.
gonna be a process.
But those late fees,
But we've had every,
it's really significant.
I guess, then let's put it to, all right, the museum is cut, they've been willing to, they've accepted a different agreement. The
Yep,
ball
we did.
parents are willing to pay for their electricity. The cemetery's looking at a $2,000, 25% cut. What do you feel would be,
we're already,
Technically, the cemetery's really only taking about $1,000 hit because of the raise it had years ago to get it out of the ditch.
maybe.
Have you ever considered adding back on to the maintenance person's job, the responsibility of mowing the cemetery? I was a city employee at one time, that was part of my job, all 15 acres of the city's property.
that was
You don't have enough
discussed,
hours, I don't think.
but then we'd have to get a mower, we'd have to,
We got them.
I don't know, I think
Right
Steve,
by the street, yes.
Yeah.
all right,
Well-
so that's
I do
okay.
too.
You're gonna have extra hours.
The city guy can't mow the whole cemetery.
Yeah. we know.
There's no way. I mean, we had a
But again, we
fleet of
haven't
people,
added this,
and it took us 4 hours to mow it.
They moved it and.
That's an impossible job. Now, if you can maybe
I think that's. what
take
she
like
said.
the area behind
I'm
Johnson's,
saying, are there any programs right now currently that you could live without?
Can we could probably cut $500.
But then you're adding in this other 3.
But you're adding in
something that we're
3,100.
supposed to cover.
But we're not adding that in, that was something that should
Should
have been in already.
Already.
So we're not, I mean, that's not something that we're,
And I haven't put it in here, calculated it on there, so I'll look up the
But
percentages.
it should have been put in there at the first.
Well, maybe it should have been, but
But we never knew about it.
we didn't know about it.
no,
It's
we
always-
didn't either. That's
it's
what I'm
always
saying.
been
That's
in
what
there.
it's,
The library has always paid for it. The last 2 years they have not because of what's been going on in here.
Well, we've been
The
paying,
library's
our
always
share of
paid
it,
for
we've
it.
been paying.
Yeah.
Why it got divided again, I don't know. But the library's always paid for that. They've always paid both shares because that's
But we've
part-
never had it on our
that's
budget.
part of the $4,500 that's paid from the city to the library.
Would you have
Has
been
it been on your
calculating
budget?
that in this 10,725 that you had down, where you said that your budget, you didn't use?
That's
as much?
10,725, that is just estimating $10 an hour at 21 hours or 22 hours a week times
So you were
52
just doing
weeks.
hours.
And so that was based on hours. And so when you take that and then you take out, the taxes and stuff would have come out of that.
But
as
maybe the
well.
fact that you didn't work all of those hours
Right.
kind of even something out somewhere
Yes.
in there with the wages
Yeah,
and the benefits.
Sure it did.
Benefits
Um,
with the wages,
When
so.
we pay your share of the taxes, that's just the other part of your gross salary, so that part's in there. It's the extra above that that the city has to pay.
That extra
Okay,
you're
so we
talking
need
about
that
used to be
so we'll
paid
need
by
that
the library.
number.
Yeah.
Yeah, but IPERS did go up this year, it was 8 point something.
But we-
last time, and
we
now it's
could-
9.
Try to trim $500 and absorb that other cost as well. We'll just have to cut somewhere something. Materials or somewhere. But we want this town, I mean, the town needs a library. And I know some people are worried about, oh, this city money's gonna be used for that building over there, and that's not
That's
true.
not been anything that we,
That
that
is the Friends group. They're gonna be dealing with that. We're gonna be having election of officers.
was
for
addressed
Friends and
at the
stuff like
meeting
that.
Monday.
Good, thank you. And that people understand that the
Smile.
total number on here includes all of our, well, the city, state, and county funding. It doesn't include all the fundraising and grant writing and donations and things that we get from other people. But, I mean, we do so many things with so many other groups. The ball parents, the Clover Kids, and the Boots and Blue Jeans 4-H clubs. We have a township that meets in there for their annual or quarterly meetings. We have PTO that meets in there. We have so much going on. We work with the Friends group, or not the Friends group, well, the Friends group, the food pantry. We help support them. And it's a community resource, and we need to see it as that. And it's something that's good for the community. And when we get over there, it's going to be even better because we have so much more to offer, and we're going to be right across the street from the city offices, and we'll be able to work much closer together and set our own hours instead of having our hours mandated by the school. It's just going to be so much better for the community. But people need to realize that this city money is going to actually fund to pay for our phone and our internet. And a lot of people can't afford that at home. That's why they come to the library to do it. We are required to have a subscription to our local newspaper by our state agencies to be accredited. And we have a lot of people that will come down there and read the newspaper because they don't want to pay $180 a year to subscribe to the newspaper, whatever it is that we pay. So, we have things that we have to pay for. We are going to try to be accredited at a higher level. Right now, we're tier 2 level. If we get our strategic plan and we get stuff done in this next year, we can come at a tier 3, and that will give us more state funding. So that's going to help out. But, I hate to see us cutting services and too much because the city needs to have something good.
A question, Ina? Just to clarify in my mind, the $3,100, that's the employer's share of Social Security, roughly 31, is it?
It includes Social Security, IPERS, Medicare, Workman's Comp, and unemployment.
Okay, so I know that Social Security is about 7%.
IPERS is around 7 something.
IPERS is
Just
about-
what I've said, it's up to 8,
It's 9 point.
9 point.
Okay, so there's 9 and 6 and 2 for Medicare,
Yeah,
so about 17% plus those others.
plus the others.
But out of the 10,000, this is 31, that's about 31%. I mean, that just it seems
That's-
large for workman's comp and things like that. That adds up to that.
How
It
much
does
is
that
the-
on
how
all
much
of
are
our
you charging?
salaries for everybody, that's just kind of standard.
How much are you charging the library for workman's comp?
It would just be, whenever we did the percentages last year, their salaries was roughly 25% of the salaries, so they got 25% of the workman's comp.
It just seems that
And it was
31%
in
without
there.
the
When the fire
insurance.
department separated, it took like $18 off of workman's comp.
Well,
You're telling me the library is paying 25% more than what
it won't
the
be
fire
that,
department was, and it's at a higher
it
higher
won't be that
insurance
much
rate?
this next year because our rate went down to 1,000 this next year for everybody. Last year it was 2,000 and something.
So our total wages was 25% of all of the city's wages.
Yes, that's what she
Yeah,
said.
just
Library wages are 25% of all the city's
Total
wages.
city wages.
That was a weird.
But your highest workman's comp liability is here. not the library.
Well, but that doesn't matter to government, it's gonna charge everybody the
Oh,
same.
yeah, that's on
And
an experience ratio.
And
Yeah,
our
it's-
department
that does
was
matter.
the highest.
Oh.
In real life, it does matter.
It didn't cost the city hardly anything.
Okay, so
That's why
$500
Library's being overcharged.
cut to the library would be an 11% cut from the city. We'd have to figure out what you lose county money there, but
Yeah.
they're willing to work with us at $500. So there'd be an 11% cut, that take them down to 4,000.
And pick up those other costs
And
that
picking up
we're
the
gonna
other
have to
costs.
raise money to pay.
How do
You guys are gonna have to raise, you always have, and you're always gonna have to, it's just the way it is. I
Well,
mean,
we
you guys
know.
are doing, you get more of the till than agency. I don't know how good a library agency has, but they have more people in the town.
Yeah.
But, no, I agree. We hate even cutting you. It's stupid to cut you, but this town has to get out of the red. I mean,
Yeah, figure it.
which we haven't tried the last few years.
Well, the city's budget's been almost
Yeah.
unchanged since 2005.
Yeah.
The exception of about $2,500.
Is the $1,000 in that, that last category coming off of there on the?
Out of rec.
Yeah, yeah.
I kind of penciled in 750 and I'm not sure what we were doing with it. I'm not positive what it was for before. I think it was maybe towards the corn carnival or something, but
Would that
I couldn't
been,
find a document on it.
That's been on the budget year after year after year
What's
after
that?
year, and nobody could figure out that $1,000, what it was going towards. It was going towards a community center, I think.
I couldn't.
we can
find
take it
anything.
down to 0. If you got nothing, then we take that.
Let's take it
I mean,
down to
if you take
zero.
that down to
because
0 and then
That's
give
It's never used.
And leave us our 500.
and then
give
leave
that
them their
$500.
500.
But okay, so technically, yeah, but we're still gaining $3,000 that we still have to, or however much we have to pay that she says, I don't know.
Do you know what the amount that I'm
Still
talking
good.
about?
I do.
Yeah, we saw it on the line item and it was discussed the last time, trying to figure out where it came from or what it
It's,
was.
Yeah.
it
Says
goes
other,
nowhere. It
Yeah,
goes
it's been
nowhere.
on
says
there
other
for-
culture and recreation, $1,000.
word.
But
We used some of it for the park things, but
Used
it's
it
been,
for a 4th of July party, I think,
but it's
one
been
year.
on there for years and years and years.
And nothing's been taken off out of there.
Now, the only few years was that a couple of years.
I don't think it's on this list, but it's on our
It was
main
on the
budget
list,
sheet.
and the main budget.
It's on the
sheet was
18
sheet.
budget, yeah.
It's down near the bottom.
$1,000.
Yep, very
Yeah.
last
So that'll
$1,000.
be in the-
You just take it off of there, then you've got an extra 500, and you can leave the library alone.
Discussion. How do you guys feel about that? Bob?
Taking 1,000 and helping.
Well, I would know. I mean, do we still want to cut 500 off the library budget? Because we're cutting, like I said, every other cultural group in town has volunteered to cut or otherwise, or do we? I need discussion from you guys. I need to hear opinions, thoughts.
Gotta cut if we do the others.
Not necessarily. It's not.
And the ball parents isn't a city employee, they're just using the park. And yes, they're gonna pay their electric bill, and that's great.
Contracted,
Yeah,
an agreement.
okay, but they're not an
The city
employee.
still pays the water. and
We're gonna
stuff.
pay for water.
City's gonna
We
pay for
volunteered
their
to
water.
pay for the electricity, we paid for the electricity and water.
Yeah.
And that's good.
One thing I wanted to clarify, Cheryl, that 12,875 number, that was just based on taking that 1125 off of the 14,000 that was in the budget. So anything other than what we put in comes from you, so I
Yes.
could change that to the 17,000 minus whatever ours is if we cut
Right.
for our share.
Me? No.
Yeah.
Cutting for the sake of cutting, cut should make sense, I guess. They should serve a purpose. And and I know that there is a broader picture here of the city as a whole, but I mean, you're penalizing an organization that has done their job. They've submitted a budget every year. They've done the fundraising to make up for the deficit in their budget, and to cut them just because, or, you know, out of a sense of fairness, if you cut the cemetery, then you should cut the library. I guess I'm questioning if that's a solid rationale.
We're trying to get out the red.
We understand.
I understand that.
That
Totally
Yeah.
we can try to use it,
11%.
some of this other money that we're trying to save to get into these other ones and get something paid off or something. It's not gonna last forever, but we're just trying to get something started that we can get.
So we just found you $1,000.
And
Well, we found out last week, or we found out last week, yeah, we knew it was there. We just-
Yeah.
It's good that
Yes,
we're
Bob.
trying to get out.
Larry?
You're not gonna do it all in one year.
And that's what but we have to start.
Yes.
When Ted was here in September, and I'll go back to that, we have to start being more fiscally responsible and more taking charge of what we, and it's not gonna happen in 1 year,
Well, that's what I was
but we
gonna
gotta
say.
chip away.
What, if we do all this, all these cuts, where do you think that's gonna put us for getting back in line? I mean,
Well, you won't be cutting down no trees.
Yeah, we're not talking really a lot of money even total that we cut out of all of these. Some of the other things have reduced too though, so they'll have additional cuts in the general fund that came from other areas.
So what is the balance right now with your working budget between income and outgo?
What
What we're planning.
Planning for 2019.
is still kind of up in the works, so we'll have to.
My biggest concern is not library. We got that payment coming due in June. And I mean, we're just scraping to get the money in the water fund. And if we don't, or the water, yeah, sure, if we don't have that money, I mean, we gotta get it somewhere.
That's gotta come out.
And you know, I don't know if we can, I don't think we can, may have to go to general for it. That's my number one concern right now, is getting the money in that fund to pay that bill. People have got to understand, we owe $555,000 to the Iowa Finance Authority, and they expect us to pay it. And the money has not been laid back as it should have been over the years. That's all we're trying to do right now, all I'm trying to do, get done. That was my main concern when I come in, was get that payment made. And you talk to Ted a lot, and you know how damn concerned he is over it.
Yeah, but you're gonna penalize the library for something the city screwed up.
But we,
I really don't know what to say to that.
when we were
I
elected,
mean,
we weren't
I
elected.
really don't want to start saying anything, I guess.
Yeah.
Elected to do what was best for the city of Blakesburg. That's what we're trying to get. We're trying to get money so we get this payment. We can always go back and amend the budgets.
I think it's got to be done by May 15th.
You've got to submit your budget by March 15th.
March
And any
15th, yeah.
budget amendments have to be done in
Yeah,
May.
so the public's got time to look at it.
Yeah.
But that's where my stress load is, all kidding, and it's not a stress load, that payment has got to be made.
we,
Yeah.
And
as a group, we have to figure out on these fees and take the heat and move ahead and get those adjusted and get those rates to where they need to be to make it work. I mean,
yeah, but that's not gonna help us this year, and you know, again, from whenever we get started at 110, and I'll get it out and show it to you, because I found it yesterday. There was an agreement signed with the Iowa Finance Authority that said 110% of the money to make that payment would be set aside in a separate fund and available to write a check. Now, there's where the problem is right now. Because somewhere, I don't know where it went. And if I sound frustrated, yes, I am.
And that's what I say,
That's
we've got to
from
move
board
it.
clerks. In the
And
past.
mayors.
Not now.
No,
No,
we're not gonna go there tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's clerk's situation.
Stop.
I bitched and bitched and
Order,
bitched at Bill
stop, stop.
Okay.
to get that taken care of.
We just need to know so that we can.
We just need to know
we need to
exactly
be
what
able-
our
We have a meeting this
allocation's
week
going to be.
also.
And that's what we're trying to figure out. That's what we're trying to figure out. That's what we've been discussing. That's what we're
And
trying
I
to get.
said, cut to the library isn't going to help the big budget. I mean, we're in deep crap, I understand that, but 500 here, 500 there, that's not gonna make a huge difference. There's gonna have to be something different. And the other thing, when you were talking about, I know the city hall's paid for now, but you need to be setting aside money for capital, because what happens if you need a new furnace or a new roof or something down the road, and that hasn't been.
In an ideal world, we'd have 20 to 50,000 set aside reserved in the general fund, but I don't see that happening
Yeah,
this year.
and that's, when we have thought we've had money left to carry over and we've asked the city for a resolution to carry our funds over, that is a one-year thing, because the Code of Iowa says at the end of the year, all the money goes back into the general fund unless there is a resolution to carry it over. And the reason we asked to carry over when we had some money, we thought we had money left over last year, was because we are trying to build up a capital fund. So when we need equipment or computers or furnishings or whatever, we have something to fall back on too. I mean, that's just something that's fiscally responsible you should be doing. And so when we purposely didn't spend every penny last year, because we were trying to get that thing going, so we would have some money to carry over.
And that carryover money would typically be monies that you have raised yourself.
That we have
Right.
raised.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Fundraising.
once the city pays its 4,500 and we spend all the money that the county and the state's given us, we're responsible for the rest of what we spend.
Okay. When I got elected into this position, I basically told people that this town was gonna start looking better. The streets were gonna be taken care of. There hadn't been anything done to these streets in 3 years to speak of, except for what some farmers donated last year, which was great. But I said, go back in, take that load of rock, that $1,000 for rock off, and take that off and leave them where they're at. I don't care. I mean, it's not worth arguing over. $500 ain't gonna amount to a hill of beans in the trees. I don't wanna hear another word about the trees. I don't care why, we got insurance. If a tree falls down, tree falls down.
Okay.
Right there's plenty of cuts. And I'm kinda embarrassed that we only give them 4,500 to tell you the truth. And
Me too, Jerry.
I know, and we had the mentality that everybody, we need to cut everybody. It ain't worth it. They're not asking us to build that building or anything. If they're willing to go out and try to do that for the city and the people that use the library, then, yeah, I would say I honestly want to drop $1,000 off of rock and that stuff. We'll make do when we come to whatever we gotta do.
What's a shame is if,
And that $1,000, that's 2,000 right there. That's
$1,000 and a half,
off
that's
of it.
2,000.
You're looking at different funds. So the
Yeah,
rock
the
would
rock
be-
will come out of the road use,
Rocks
whereas the other ones come out of the general fund. But if you guys, if you're comfortable with that, Larry?
If I don't have to cut any trees, I'm comfortable. They sold me.
Yeah,
So
that's,
what's our-
yeah.
Okay, so we took 1,000 out, library stays at 4,500.
Okay,
And
we're
we'll
going back
figure,
to the-
with Ina,
what
we'll
about the
figure out
cemetery?
what we have to pay for
We're gonna
that
have to-
portion. Thank you.
What's that?
So we're gonna cut the cemetery too at the same time?
maybe some of us could donate a little bit of rock and take care of that end of it.
We're taking 1,000 out of it.
Get some guys with a small truck and a shovel, put the rock in the path rather than spreading it down the middle.
That'll come out
I
of
guess the
road
question
use.
is, can the
No,
cemetery get
No, we
by on
can't.
6?
Go ahead and do
I
that.
didn't hear what
now.
Jerry said.
Okay, I didn't know that couldn't come out of road use either. So,
There's gotta be a massive pile of rock somewhere down the bottom of them hills at the
We,
cemetery.
for the cemetery,
As much of it that gets
Only wants 6.
washed out of there.
well, if we help them with fundraising,
They need to go to Felix and see what,
Yeah.
his lowest,
I wish we'd have talked to him before this happened. I should have got down to this with Paul a little bit.
we were talking about for Wednesday, when we have to have the final, Wednesday night, we're gonna have the final budget, we have to approve a proposed budget, a completed budget Wednesday to get everything done on time. So I will try to get a hold of Paul, meet with him on Monday, discuss with him and see what what needs to be done, what can be done.
I think they tighten, you know, we talked about that, tighten up just a little bit, maybe that'd be 500 or whatever there, but
Well, like, didn't you say a lot of the costs with the trimming down there is because they have so much stuff they have to move around
But
and stuff?
that's been discussed, and we kind of want somebody to just sit and visit with, say, Celix, and just see if that would make a difference, maybe, you know, $50 less a mow, you know, it
Well, I
could
know.
be, that's,
In Atumwa, they make them clean all their, and I know
But
people
that's
want to
a-
put things down there.
That's perpetual.
I think it is, it's just not.
Spring and fall, there's 2 cleanups, spring and fall.
Spring and
But they
fall.
got people buried down there, you pay so much for them to be buried there.
What if the city maybe sees what it would take for Gary to just weed eat the cemetery?
From talking to the cemetery board and attending the meeting last fall, I think they're very high on Celix, and they would like to keep them if at all possible. I don't know, that's something, food for thought.
And
Keep Celix, but see if, they'd knock something off if Gary was able to weed eat or something.
Well, what we're
Would
kind of
that-
hoping is, and again, I don't know
See-
if
just see if the
that would
price
work. If it was
difference-
just, say, a little clearer down there, but maybe you could mow, pick a number an hour quicker, half an
Yeah.
hour quicker, then he might reduce it. That's kind of what we want to talk
And,
about.
and that property right behind Johnson's, I mean, that's wide open. That's something Gary could probably mow in 30 minutes.
Behind Johnson's.
Yeah, right behind his house, there's a section there
Yeah,
that's cemeteries.
not right behind his house.
Across the
Oh.
alley.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
But
across
then-
the alley.
Yeah,
right there, on that
west.
hill.
then your city's
I'm
gonna
not sure
be
the
picking
board
up the
wants to
cost
sit
of
in
the
there,
gas and all that
there's
stuff to
been
mow it
discussion
too,
about the
so.
difference
Yeah, but I
tonight.
mean, if they're willing to cut off, say, $100 a month, just by doing that, it's a win-win situation.
I talked to Paul, and I'll get
This
hold of
is-
Paul, and we'll,
His
find
mother
out where
and
he
his
goes.
grandmother mow and he weed eats.
Yeah.
That's all he does, is weed eat.
Surely we need to do some fundraising, try to get some rock for that. I mean, there's a few farmers that are on that board in there that maybe have trucks or something. We can,
It's hard to keep rocking those roads because they just go.
That's what I was saying, we just put it in the path, where the wheel tracks are, rather than spreading it all over. Use a lot less and
Why don't you start
grass
throwing
in
like
between.
gravel or something in with the cold patch? I mean, would that help at all?
yeah, it takes away from your road patch and,
Bounce on them.
yeah.
I guess when we get the final numbers in, we'll have to see. I know the fiscal year 18 budget, we budgeted for, there was a $20,000 shortfall. That can't happen, I guess, is the bottom line.
But if we cut it in half, would that be acceptable in
No.
1 year?
We have to be back to even. I don't want to.
In 1 year, you're
You're gonna try and cut $20,000 in 1 year?
That was
After the
my.
city's been operating on that for the last 18?
That was my plan, yeah.
Yeah.
But we've
I
always.
don't know, I went into shock when I looked at Pulaski's, Pulaski.
Lasky
I
has.
looked at their published, but I went into shock when I saw that. I think they're running they were showing, 470-some thousand in their general fund. I about freaked.
Because that's what.
They're a lot smaller, or a lot different community too.
Well, they're.
I mean, when Kirkville's showing money to the black,
You'll
we're not.
get there.
What is
Jerry's
it?
mentioned being embarrassed, but.
We're gonna get there.
Hey, have faith. We have faith in you guys. We'll get
I
there.
have faith in
You gotta
you,
start
but-
somewhere, I just,
You're gonna get it,
I
it'll
just
be
don't know.
okay.
Well, I know we're gonna be okay, it's just,
It'll
there's,
be okay.
Show
One
incentive
year.
and proof to the state that you are on it.
yeah.
This is the first budget that's ever been prepared here by councilmen in a long time. I don't know how long they've been sending down to Bernie always, but
I think we
Using
discussed
real
some of this, and I
numbers.
guess the camera's
Using real
running.
numbers.
It's kind of hard on the council, when they sit in here, everybody knew this was gonna be fun. But when you start walking in the door about every other day and finding out, gee, this wasn't paid, gee, this isn't paid, gee, we got it over here, here's a penalty, gee, we got it over there, and I'm not looking for excuses, but kind of understand where I'm coming from. Sometimes $1,000 on a cut right now sounds pretty good to me. Yeah.
I understand. If we can find it somewhere else in the budget, that's great. And we are gonna be picking up more costs, so that is gonna mean we're gonna have to cut some of our line items to make up the cost of that stuff that they said we weren't paying. So we are gonna be looking at some line item cuts and moving around the money, so. But it's just, the cemetery board, if you cut them, they're not gonna get cut from the county as well. If you cut us, we have to lower our
Do we
budget.
know that
We are
for
gonna
sure?
get cut from the county.
Yeah,
They do get
they're
county
taxed.
money.
The counties are taxed for cemetery.
Cemetery,
That's
I know
flat.
the townships
It
get
don't
some,
go
but
up, it don't go down unless it's voted on.
it's just a basic amount. But ours is based on, like you said, their formula, percentage of how much our budget is and what our city funding is, what percentage we get from our city, the taxing and all that, so.
Okay,
It does
based on the
impact.
estimates that we have, the revenue coming in and expenses, we are gonna show that we're gonna come in $1,600 in the black on the estimates right now, but that's just dealing with estimates. So I guess,
Hey, that's better than nothing.
That's right.
Hey, that's definitely moving in the right direction.
You're not gonna eliminate, $50,000-$60,000 deficit in 1 year.
well, no, and we knew that, but I was hoping to cut into it more than,
Well, it's just,
You'll have
you
proof
got,
going in a positive fashion in black.
you wanna cut, I'd love to cut everything, but then you start screwing over everybody, but at the same time, the city's gotta start looking in, hey, here in a few years, the state's gonna start limiting the money that even the cities can tax. So the city's gotta come up with ways to get more money. And one way is that franchise fee with the electricity.
yeah, we discussed that at the last meeting, and
We're just trying to
It's kind of
decide how bad
different.
we want to hit everybody.
garbage goes up, water goes up, sewer goes up. Do we
Those,
really want to go up with
those
energy?
Water
at the
has
same
to
time?
go up. I mean, there's no,
water.
Garbage
sewer
has got to
have
go up too. She can give you the number, and I don't even know what it is. I thought I knew a little bit, but until I come in and found out how bad we've been getting hit with garbage. Because 31 accounts, and no garbage money coming in, we got hammered.
So based on the estimates, we have, I said, there are only estimates, but we are intending on coming in with a budget surplus, I guess.
See, you give up your $1,000, that can go right to your mom.
And there you go. That's what I ain't getting paid for this. So yeah, that's another 1,000 that's actually put on there that we're
Remember
going
what I
to
said, the worst thing will happen is they won't vote for it. Get that 27 cents on the ballot.
Like I said last work session, I will donate my salary back, but the way I was instructed to do it, gets close to the end of the year, when I know what it is, I'll make a donation specifically to the city. I did that last year, I messed up a little, but I'll get it right this year, I promise you.
And it is imperative that we get the local option sales tax switched to general fund relief as opposed to capital projects. That's something that we have to get on the ballot for November. I talked to Jerry Parker, I think it was Tuesday. He said he didn't think we could get it on a primary ballot or anything, so it would have to be the general election ballot, so more people,
I would say that might be better, actually.
yeah, get more people out to vote. And that's not, again, that's not taxing anybody any higher, it's not doing anything different, it's just reallocating what we use that
yeah,
money for.
make sure you get that out there, if anything, put it in a letter to,
Yeah, 'cause
And we need
people
to
think
get that
it's
out
an
there in the
additional
simplest
tax.
terms as possible, that it's
No.
not reallocating, I mean, we're just moving it from one thing that we did before to the
that
other.
happened to Eldon a few years ago, and they ended up having another vote on it because,
That's something that's imperative that we have to get done, and that'll help us out even more in the general fund. So, work session number 2 is done, I think. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second. Chisholm seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Stay for another hour.
Have a good weekend.
Hey,
See
you
ya.
guys,
I'm gonna drink another cup of coffee.
I know tempers can get high, but I applaud you guys in trying to do what you're trying to do. I mean,
Appreciate that.
It's not easy.
Since we're adjourned, do we know when we're gonna have our next?
Next Wednesday.
Wednesday. Yeah, we said it Wednesday at 7. Yep.
And we